Welcome everyone to another Anywhere Operations podcast. My name is Hayden van Roon. Today, joining me, we have another very special guest, Steve Harding, who is the pre-sales engineer at Logitech. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Welcome. I know you're a big fan of the show.
I am. I really am. Since you've approached me and since hearing Josh was on here, and I've just blazed through everything.
Good. Keep those numbers rolling in. That's fantastic.
That's it.
Work. I'm glad we've got you on now. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to get your expertise and knowledge on this particular topic. So just jumping straight in. So last week we spoke about hybrid working and how the flexible workplace is really here to stay. As a result of that, we've seen challenges for collaboration and mental health. And we talked about some of the software we can use to support our teams in that hybrid working environment and help them stay well, help them maintain good mental health. Today's topic flows on quite nicely from that. So the same challenges that we're having with hybrid working also impact our physical health. And that's because, as we discussed last week, we're spending more time than ever in front of our computers. People are, I'm not sure what your experience is, Steve, here, but for me, I'm spending an extra 1-2 hours in front of my computer because it's like, okay, well, I would normally be on the train home right now, but I've got this extra hour or two. I'm going to stay sitting at my desk, take another meeting, I'll take another call, whatever. What's your experience, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen myself going from a 7-8 hour day to easily 12-hour day, much to my wife's disappointment would be the word. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, definitely seeing myself sitting at my desk a lot more often. My work's mixed up between meeting people and going on site to see people, but the other part of that is I sit at the desk now. I'm finding for 10 hours a day at least.
Yeah. In addition to that, right? Like for me, I like to get up and have a coffee and kind of mosey off to. I've got a very open plan office at our place. In our office, and quite often I like to just wander over and have a chat with someone and just get a sense of what everyone else is working on. So it's kind of nature of my role as well. And you lose those things. If I want to find out what someone's working on, I'm going to set a meeting with them if I'm working from home and I'm sitting at my desk. So I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a sit to stand, but not everyone has the space or the resources in order to do that, and they're expensive as well. So yeah. So I really wanted to talk to you about some of the challenges we've seen. So, for me, some of the kind of poor offices I've seen is in a lot of my friends in different organizations that aren't so well supported. So, I've seen people sent home with just a laptop, no keyboard, no mouse, no screens, no docking station. And I've actually heard that it really impacts their ability to stay productive and stay well at work. Have you seen any poor workstations since this hybrid working thing became a big deal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the worst workstation I think I've seen, and the reason I've seen it is because the person who showed the picture did a comparative shot between this really bad workstation and they upgraded. Their workstation consisted of an ironing board and a laptop on an ironing board. And that was their makeshift sit-to-stand desk.
That's pretty poor. I mean, I applaud the effort of trying to, get this happening, but no.
But so they were just using their supplied laptop, an ironing board. I don't know how they were using a mouse. I don't think they were using a mouse. I think they were using the trackpad. Yeah. And all in all, they were just having a bad time.
It sounds like a bad time.
It is.
So for me, I've done some research on this, and there's a lot of really poor health outcomes that happen when you have a laptop on an ironing board or something equally bad. So for example, if you've got a low monitor, it means you're constantly looking down. Your neck's not in a good position, your head's not in a good position, and I've experienced this in previous organizations. You get really poor neck pain, shoulder pain is really bad. What's other kind of impacts have you seen from poor workstation setup, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think and you touched on all the physical stuff there, but I think what people don't really see is the holistic approach to the whole body. So, it's not just the physical pain and ongoing risk of RSI, but it's also the mental aspect that goes with it as well.
Okay.
So a lot of people find, there's association. So if they're working and they're not feeling comfortable, and in fact they're getting pain from work, they actually become maybe sour towards their work, and their productivity drops, and that can lead to other mental health issues down the track if that's prolonged. Particularly if people are already prone to mental health challenges. It's just we need to take a holistic look.
Yeah,
I think at the whole idea of your setup.
It really kind of like snowballs, right? Poor health, physical health leads to poor mental health, and of course the impact to a business is kind of obviously productivity and collaboration, but you also just want to be looking after your workers. It goes beyond just that, and obviously there's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's wrist pain if you're using a keyboard, a trackpad. There's a lot of anecdotal wrist pain experience that I've been reading about. And I think Logitech had some interesting statistics about how many keystrokes and how many kilometers your wrist travel. Do you have those handy?
You know what? If you give me 1 second, I will have those handy, because if I'm up the top of my head, in 1 year, somebody will travel their mouse. I think it's 27 kilometers.
That's right.
Don't quote me on that. And the keystroke was in the millions.
Yeah. So I sneakily
there you go.
Earlier. So it's So what we found is that you're right, 27 kilometers per year for a heavy computer user with their scrolling of their mouse, which is crazy. Imagine I couldn't run 27 kilometers. And 3 million keystrokes per year.
That's just
insane.
Amazing. It's insane.
So it's that you can imagine the cumulative impact of these things, because I imagine using a mouse and you maybe using it heavily for 1 day and then not using it all for weeks, probably not going to have the impact. But if that's what you're using every day, it's going to really impact. And the other statistic that I drew up from Logitech's research on this space is that 15% of computer users experience pain in their wrists, forearm, hands, shoulders, or elbows on a daily basis. So if you're a heavy computer user, those statistics show you that this stuff really makes an impact. And as we touched on, if you're in pain, you're not going to be productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, anecdotally, I've got an experience with that, in that before coming to Logitech, in the previous role I was in, we was given a supplied keyboard mouse. I can't remember what brand they were, but they weren't designed very well. And after using the particular mouse, I used it for about 8-9 weeks.
Yeah.
I actually had a lot of wrist pain, a lot of forearm pain. I developed a lot of upper back pain, and to the point where I actually had to see a doctor. It got pretty bad. Fast forward a little while later, I actually came to Logitech, did a bit of a career change, was supplied with a MX vertical, so one of those vertical mice, and all that pain's actually gone. It's gone completely. It's world difference.
So what did you have to do, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah.
And feel free to say no.
That's okay.
What were the things that you had to do with the doctor? What were his recommendations to ease the pain?
Physio. So I had to go through a bunch of scans. So there were don't ask me the medical scans. I can't remember what the scans are, but there were scans just to make sure everything was okay. I found there was inflammation in the wrist as well.
Wow.
The doctors said go see a physio. Physio then recommended a bunch of stretches, a bunch of exercises you can do just to strengthen that, which is fine, but it's not addressing the root cause of the problem. So I'm not making the pain go away. I'm just band-aiding the solution.
But then you move to an ergonomic mouse and you've fixed the root of the problem. So that's a good segue. Yeah. So ergonomics is a concept that obviously is the heart of a lot of the stuff that Logitech's been doing in recent years. And if you say ergonomics, that it's a concept that's been around for a while. When I started at different organizations, we've had these checks done where we make sure the seat's at the right height and the desk's at the right height and the monitors at the right height. But I feel like modern ergonomics has evolved.
Mm.
From your perspective, or from Logitech's perspective, Steve, how has modern ergonomics evolved over the last few years?
I think it's good to look at it as a macro and micro level. What you were talking about over the previous years has very much been the macro level. How is your chair set? How is your desk height? How is your monitor height?
Mhm.
Now we're looking at the micro level. What is the shape of the mouse? What is the shape of the keyboard? How does the body fall naturally, or how does it need support?
Mm.
So we're looking at it at a micro level. And there's a lot of those micro components add up to your big picture, the overall.
Mm.
So I think, for Logitech, we've got that macro picture sorted. We all understand how we should be sitting. We all understand what good posture is. Now we're looking at those little factors that do impact your posture and cause that RSI over long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're saying like natural movements, it sounds like you're talking about that concept of neutral posture.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
What can you tell us about the importance of neutral posture?
Yeah, it's neutral posture is, I guess, the way your body naturally wants to sit. And everybody is different as well, which is why there is a variety of different shaped mice and keyboards on the market, because you want to find the one that you want to feel the most comfortable with. So that neutral posture is just when you sit in a chair and you place your arms down and you kind of feel, this is how I feel. I'm not overpronating, no, not under not twisting my wrist too much. I'm not bending over too much. And so it's just finding that most natural way to exist in that spot.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And so that idea of sitting in a chair can also be translated into mice, right? So
Yeah.
how have, mice and keyboards is the things that we interact with most when we're sitting, anyone who works in a modern organization, if you're not doing labor or out on site all the time, you're sitting in a computer, and the mice and keyboards are the things we interact with most, right? So
Yep.
how do you think mice have evolved over the last 10 years?
Yeah. I think when you look at form and function, so in the last 10, so take a decade ago, mice were made to they were very generic, and people, I guess, were focusing on the looks of a mouse, how it functions, its accuracy, and not really giving much thought into how it feels in the hand or how it's used long term. Fast forward, to today, and if I focus on, I guess, Logitech and our ErgoLab in Switzerland, they're looking deeper into the physiology of a person. So take the mouse. We've looked at what's the arm made of. You've got a ulnar, you've got a radius bone. How does it look when it pronates or supinates? What does your body look like? So 10 years later, we're looking at what impact does that mouse have on your arm? Where is it going to cause the most stress? Where is it pulling the most on your bones? So that's how from a Logitech point of view, we've seen mice going, okay, people are sitting at the desk for a long term. We want them to be comfortable. We don't want to cause long-term injury. Let's look at how the body is.
Yeah. And so an ergonomic mouse then really needs to, I guess, put your arm, your wrist, your hands in those neutral positions. Is there anything else, like if we take the MX vertical or the MX? So what was the other MX series? That's
you got the Master.
Master. That's it. Because those are two ergonomic mouse, but they do mice, but they do ergonomics in different ways. Like what if we take those two examples, what makes them ergonomic?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just say from my personal experience, I use the vertical, and I actually use both. So I'm using the Master today, and I use the vertical at home. I use the vertical at home because that's where I spend a lot of my time, like I said before, 10 hours a day almost, sitting there. I find that if I come and sit at the desk, my hands want to be somewhat neutral, not pronated, not supinated, and the vertical fits my hand that way. It's not just about where your hand sits, but it's also where your digits fall as well. So are the buttons in a good place for your fingers to press? Has it got all the functions on the mouse that you need to minimize the movements on other parts of your body. When I'm out and about, so for today I'm in the office. Usually when I'm in the office, I'm not at my desk for long periods of time. I'll use a MX Master, or I've got an Anywhere in my bag as well, which is smaller. There's less long-term use for those mice, so they don't need to fit me as well as my vertical does.
Yeah. So that
But
yeah,
absolutely, it's portability. I mean, throwing a MX vertical in my bag takes a fair bit of space, and I don't want to do that. An MX Master or Anywhere, perfect for the bag.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's how your hand falls on it. You could look at the weight of it. How heavy is it to move around? Because that all causes strain on the wrist, and just the reach of the scroll wheel and the buttons.
I guess the other component is the keyboard. So what, I guess, again, same question. I guess the tenets are probably the same around, why we're looking at designing ergonomic keyboard. But I guess what are the unique things about an ergonomic keyboard compared to just a normal run-of-the-mill keyboard?
Yeah, I mean, look at the human body. We're not square, And look at the generic keyboard you have in the market. They're square. They're very, I don't know, you could call them linear, and your hands don't sit square onto something when you're at a desk. You want them to fall, and they kind of fall facing inwards, and that's the idea of that neutral position again. Yeah. So we have a keyboard. Trying to remember what the model is. It's a recently new keyboard.
We'll put the link in the description.
Put the link in the description. That's it. But it's that idea that your hands are going to fall in front of you, and they fall in a particular position where they're slightly pointed in and they're slightly raised. So this keyboard, the idea is that your hands fall so naturally on it that all the keys that you require are within reach, and there's just no strain on your arm at all. I mean, adding to that, you got your square keyboards. They have their place, and everyone's different. So some people feel comfortable with a more square keyboard. They feel comfortable with their elbows more tucked in to type.
Yeah.
And other people like to be a bit more wider, like myself.
Yeah. I guess it probably comes down to a couple of reasons. Like, I can imagine, because it makes sense when you say, oh, your hands aren't square, we're not square. It makes sense. And the obvious reason to make a keyboard square is probably manufacturing, right? Like it's cheaper to manufacture something rectangular than it is to make something that's got an odd shape about it. And I imagine, as you say, people might prefer the rectangular keyboards, but is it the best thing for them? It's probably only because they've grown up, using them, and that's what they're used to. But it could make sense to spend a bit of energy and time to kind of slightly relearn how to use a different keyboard, especially if you're one of those people that, like you was experiencing pain. For me, I justified spending too much money on a electronic sit-to-stand desk because, I'm feeling those impacts. So I feel like if you're someone who suffers a lot of wrist pain, who spends 12 hours a day at your desk, maybe take a bit of extra time to learn how to use a different keyboard, right?
Absolutely. I think, and it's the time to use it, but if you have the opportunity to go and, I guess, try it before you buy it as well, a lot of shops will have keyboards set up for you to feel. How does it feel? Yeah. Take your time to feel that.
Yeah.
Coming back to that question, how has it changed over the past 10 years for the mice? I think looking at the keyboards, there's been huge changes. Previously keyboards, I don't know who came up with the idea, but keyboards used to sit angled towards you. So the back of the keyboard was raised up. And that's so bad for your wrist because you're already flexing your wrist back.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that was even a thing.
Yeah.
And now we're realizing actually keyboards facing the other way is much better for you.
Yeah, because it makes sense. It's funny how these design decisions are made independently of the health field, and it feels like the technology and health fields are converging. And obviously lots of industries, but particularly in the technology industry, and it's just like why haven't we doing this from the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. Very cool. Well, you mentioned the ErgoLab earlier. I was reading a little bit about that, and it was quite intriguing. What can you tell us about the ErgoLab?
Absolutely. Look, it's a good place for anybody to go and have a look. Have a look at how they can adjust their workspace, how they can improve their, holistic wellness just by making a few changes at the desk. We're looking at mouse ergonomics, we're looking at keyboard ergonomics, but we're looking at your desk height, looking at, the body as a whole experience when you work. Fix that. It leads to a lot more other benefits, mental benefits, just an overall feeling of wellness when you work.
Yeah.
You don't want your work to lead to unhappiness. You want to do whatever you can to make you happy and feel good about the job that you do every day.
Definitely.
And so ErgoLab has a bunch of resources there to help you along the way. It has a bunch of resources to show you what Logitech products can help you to achieve what you want to achieve. And it's generally just a really good looking website, to be honest. It's just fun to look at.
Yeah.
Like when you look at it, it's just really fun to look at. Our team in Switzerland is where they do the design of our products. They are, feeding into ErgoLab, but it's coming from real research. It's coming from, and actually ErgoLab has a lot of videos about how they do it, but they're measuring biometric data from people on how a new product works with the body.
Yeah.
If they design and they sculpt everything by hand, it's not just designed in a PC. They're actually getting the foam out. They're sculpting it by hand. How does it feel in a hand? They run it through a bunch of people to test it, and they get biometric data to see how somebody's body is reacting to a device. So, they're using real world data to create products that actually work really well.
I think the good thing about ErgoLab too is that it's not very Logitech product centric either. Like it's actually it's a genuine resource. You can go through and the majority of the content actually, it contains tips that don't actually involve having to buy or have a Logitech product. So some of the examples are, some of the wellness tips they use. So a really good one is I think there's 5. So I don't know if you know if I'm off by heart, but I've got them in front of me.
Good, I'm glad, because I actually don't know.
So the key ones are move around. So they suggest getting up and taking frequent breaks every hour. Changing your position. So, we were talking about standing desks and ironing boards earlier. A standing desk is obviously not a catch-all solution, right? Like you're actually standing all day isn't any better than sitting all day. And so it very much it's about varying your position, making sure that you're not in the one position all day. Looking away from your screen. So again, if you're spending 12 hours a day, it's 12 hours potentially of your eyes getting blasted by a computer screen. So making sure that you're looking away every 15 minutes, setting aside time to, maybe just look out the window every 15 minutes or so, and make sure you leave the office. So making sure that once you've logged off, you actually logged off for the day.
Yes, absolutely.
So sorry, go.
Sorry, I was just adding, and that just ties into that whole body experience. It's not just your wrist, it's not just your back, it's your brain is the most important organ in your whole body, and you got to look after that as much as you do your wrist and your hands.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that's a really good takeaway, and something I hadn't really been thinking about was I had a question to ask on here, which was what's one thing that people can do to change their workstation to make it more ergonomical. And I think we could probably pick something, but it's not really, one thing is actually probably not going to do it. You do need to take that holistic experience, right? Yeah,
I agree.
We've got a bit of extra time, which is great. So there's another topic I wanted to talk to you about, which is obviously, we know that we need to make all these changes to keep our staff healthy and happy at work. The challenge is with hybrid working is that there's now at least 2 stations, and if you count working remotely as well as working at home as well as being in office, that's actually 3 scenarios you've got to cater for. And so there's a big challenge around how do we support our staff if they're in the office, at home, and or working from a cafe, right? And I don't think it's a simple answer. It's obviously, there's an investment required to buy some of these things. Obviously, there's no investment required to get your staff to make sure they're getting up and moving around. But in terms of those micro level changes that you were talking about, Steve, there's an investment, right? So should put a question to you: what is the ideal scenario? Is there an ideal scenario? Should we be buying 2 sets of equipment or 3 sets of equipment for our staff? So having, like, you have a mobility mouse that they take with them, have a vertical at home, and have an MX Master in the office, or is there another option? What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think, when you look at your options are, if I'm a company and I'm looking at my staff, my options will be, like you said, purchase all the equipment for everybody, or purchase 1 set and expect them to cart it around. Ideally, I wouldn't want to see people carting around a keyboard in their bag. Not because I don't want to see them carrying keyboards, because I'd hate for them to come to work or go to the home office and go, oh no, I left my keyboard at my office and now I have to type on my laptop, which the experience is not going to be terrible. It puts the staff into a bit of a predicament. My opinion would be, make the investment, make the financial investment, make the, I guess, just the caring investment into your staff to provide them the best possible situation for both locations.
Yeah.
So if we're just looking at home office and in office, make the investment for them. Those are the micro changes that make a large impact. When you're looking at things like sit-stand desks, office chairs, that kind of stuff, those things can be mitigated with getting up, walking around, having breaks more often, and doing some other things. But like we were saying in the statistics before, how much you use your mouse, how much you use your keyboard, invest in those things for your staff, and that will go a long way to keeping them productive and just generally happy.
Yep. I guess the other point too is that, if you're someone that works a lot at home, you're probably still using those devices for personal use at home, right? So if you're in a position where you can invest in those things yourself, and it's worth it, right? If you compare the costs of seeing a physio, seeing a doctor for these sort of things, it's very much a upstream or downstream, whichever way you want to look at it, preventative measure that you can take. So if your workplace is investing, I guess, in the office, if you're in a position to, it's well worth investing at home, because if you weigh up the cost of seeing a physio 4 times in a month or whatever, it's going to be cheaper to just go and buy a nice keyboard and mouse, right?
Absolutely. If your business isn't able to invest in you that way, and there are plenty of reasons why a business won't be able to do that for all their staff, and that's totally fine. Take the opportunity to invest in yourself. It is, if that's your primary method for work, it's a tax deductible claim at that point. Make the investment in yourself. Like you said, physio, doctors, they're not cheap. They'll be much more expensive than buying quality peripherals.
Yeah, I agree. And I can't miss the opportunity to give a cheeky plug. So Logitech and Fastrack have been working together really closely over the last few years. And one of the big things that we like to do is if you're an organization that's looking to refresh your fleet and you want to get your hands on some demo devices, come and talk to us. Now's the time. Hybrid working is not going away.
Absolutely. And there's a range of products. I guess you gave a cheeky little plug. I'll give a cheeky little plug for Logitech. We have a range of stuff that is made for different people. Everyone's different. We have products that fit, everybody. So it's just a matter of, again, seeing you guys, seeing what's available, and then just giving it a go.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insight. It's always good to hear what Logitech have been up to in this space. And
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, it was great. Hopefully we can have you on again to talk about your other passion, which is video conferencing.
It is. I'd love to.
All right. Well, thanks again, Steve, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.